Welcome back to OrgZoo Instant Insights, where we are looking at learning and lifestyle learning in culture, behavior, and leadership. I wanted to look at how to use a creative story, and in particular in this case, to use a creative story to explain how collaboration works. Sometimes we have to tell a metaphorical story in order to influence people and to get them to understand what the salient points of collaboration is about. So let's use the idea of making bread. Well, first of all, we've got to figure out what we are doing. Are we making bread or are we making a cake? The ingredients matter. Getting the right ingredients for your collaboration is critical. And it's not an exact science, but there are proportions, there are measures of the different style of ingredients that you have to take into account. So in the early stages, collaboration involves a lot of work. There's a lot of mixing. There are dry bits and wet bits and crunchy bits, and it doesn't always come together really neatly at the beginning. But with more work, you can start to get it. You start to get a core of activity, but there's still a few crumbs and things hanging around the side, things that don't start. Some of those crumbs start to form like little moons, little communities of their own that are not really part of the major community. And this is what happens as you need the community into sort of coming together. If you get it right, and maybe you need to adjust a little bit more of this or that, like water, a bit more flour, a bit of salt, a bit of flavoring, you can come to something that is workable. It's people there are generally a little bit happy. But then even when you've got to that stage, you've got to something that is workable. You want to make it better. You want to pull it apart and stretch it and see that elasticity in the dough and then bring it back together so that the community is more together and more happy than what it was. Don't just accept what you've got the first time around. Take it through iterative cycles. Revisit the same conversations over again. So where does that take us? Well, we're now in a place that we're ready to incubate. We're ready to allow the fermentation of ideas. The dough, the community, is fairly small at this stage, and you just need to give it a little bit of time to develop. And if you keep it warm and in the right environment, it grows. You need to add a little bit of ideas and protection and shelter from it. It will continue to grow, and it builds into something that was significantly bigger than it was at the beginning. But it takes time. It takes effort. It takes work to be able to get it to grow like that. So with that fermentation comes extra volume. And if you look inside the community at this stage, there's lots of bubbles of ideas and things that are starting to come together to form structure. And if you then look at that and roll it out, you say, well, what kind of structure do we want this to become? What kind of shape? And we may even at this stage divide it up into different types of shapes for different purposes. Subgroups and teams within that community that are aligned around different purposes and different ideas. They look a little bit different, but they're of the same substance. They come from the same origins. If you allow each of those to incubate, and get some interactions between them, then they each individually grow in size. But it takes time. You've got to get the internal workings right and the interactions going on for this to work properly. But then, of course, you've only got, well, a half-baked set of communities or a half-baked idea. We want to bake this. We want to take it and bake it and form it into something that we can be really proud of, something that we can look inside of and say, look at that, that's fantastic. Look at the steam coming from this particular idea. I really want to taste it. I want to be part of it. It's engaging you. You look inside. The more you open it up, the more you want it. And of course, what you do with that community is then up to you. So we need to change our mind about collaboration a little bit. Instead of just saying, let's just come together and do a workshop and collaborate, it doesn't work like that. We need to shift and understand that it takes time to form the relationships, for the fermentation to happen, for the shift in the nature of the dough as it becomes risen dough, as it becomes baked, as it becomes a sandwich. We are evolving this over time, and it takes a lot of work and effort and perspectives from a range of things. It takes the right environment. So what we need to think about with collaboration is stop fighting over pieces of the pie. That's not the environment we're in. We can build a bakery. Don't fight over the pie. Build a bakery. Figure out what it is that you can co-create. Don't take what's existing and think that's satisfying enough that you can then just divide up what's there. When we collaborate, we can actually create something bigger and better and newer and different to what it was before. The co-creation process feeds off collaboration and gives us new value, not just divided existing value. Let's see what we can do together. Thank you.